Hello everybody! Today let's start with a game about some games. So papakitaan ko kayo ng clips of some popular TV game shows, tas sabihin niyo sa akin kung paano sila nagkakapareho or what they have in common.
Citizenship test, better known as holidays, pop music, history from Hollywood, and finally, talk nonsense. Jody, start us off.
Pop music for 100, please.
The next question is, besides superhero, name a profession that requires you to wear tights. Mark.
Trapeze artist.
Trapeze artist. All right. Let's look at the board. Circus acrobat. Chris.
How did you get that?
Ballet. Profession that requires you to wear, you say ballet. Let's look at the board. Survey says. Man, you get to play.
Tao. Hindi. Bagay. Hindi. Halo. Hindi. Lugar. Hindi. Kain. Kanin. Gulay. Hindi. Street food. Fast food. Shirt. Cake. Hindi. Cake. Candy. Hindi. Candy ice cream. Ice candy. Cotton candy. Ice cream. Biscuit. Cookies. Mabalong pastillas. Bubblegum. Lollipop.
And the answer is categories. Even itong tanong ko sa inyo, yung what do these have in common, ay about understanding how to use categories. So yan ang topic natin today. Tara, usap tayo. Let's get talking. Hello! For those of you who are new here, I'm Teacher Kaye and I'm a certified speech-language pathologist. Today, we're going to talk about categories, and it's a skill na ginagamit natin araw-araw, maybe without even realizing it anymore, but that's how important it is in our everyday lives. And just like how we always begin, let's define categories. Categories are groups of items or ideas based on their characteristics or qualities. And categorization is the skill of us assigning and forming and labeling and naming these groups. In the intro, you saw some samples of TV game shows na gumagamit ng categories. For example, the very popular quiz show Jeopardy na pinapakitaan sila ng several categories na pwede silang pumili ng questions out of those categories. And it will help you make decisions because you will know what are the possible items that could be in this group based on the name of the category and what you know you won't expect in that category. Kung magaling ka, let's say, history, pero alam mong hindi ka magaling sa people and showbiz or entertainment, di syempre pipiliin mo lang yung category na mas familiar ka. In the American game show naman na Family Feud, ang binibigay naman ay yung category tapos kailangan mag-isip ka ng mga items under that category. So for example, name the top 5 dishes that Teacher Kaye likes. So huhulaan mo ngayon, okay, ano kaya mga gustong pagkain ni Teacher Kaye? Naming or listing items under a specific category is another skill that is related to categories, but we'll talk about that later. Sa Pinoy henyo naman, when we're looking for clues, di ba ang tinatanong natin, tao, hayop, pagkain, lugar? So these are actually samples of categories para malaman natin what are we talking about. So kapag sinabing tao, obviously, hindi ka nasasagot ng, let's say, pakwan, di ba? We use this in our daily lives. For example, when we go to the grocery, para mas mabilis nating mahanap ang isang bagay, di ba pupunta tayo dun sa section kung saan siya mahahanap. So kung naghahanap ka ng, let's say, sugar, syempre hindi ka pupunta dun sa dairy or sa meat section. But what makes this a super everyday skill kahit hindi natin nakikita or napapansin is because categories is how we organize our information, how we organize our thoughts. Categories help us to learn information, to make relationships with other things that we already know so that mas ma-retain or maaalala natin sila. And then, how we organize these will make it easier for us to retrieve the words that we need when we need to use them. For example, when we're trying to talk and we're trying to find the most appropriate words to use, hindi natin napapansin or nakikita, syempre, because invisible yung workings of our brain, pero sobrang bilis, hyper-speed na work yung brain natin to be able to pick out anong susunod na gagamitin kong word. Is it an action? Is it a person? Is it a place? Will I use English? Will I use Tagalog? So these are just some of the ways that our vocabulary is stored in our brains. They are still in compartments or categories para mas madali natin ma-access yung mga thoughts and ideas and information that we already have. So now that we know the definition of categories, usually anong next nating pinag-uusapan? Ang prerequisites. So what is necessary for us to be able to categorize? So first of all, syempre, we need to be able to recognize the characteristics. So recognizing characteristics or qualitative concepts is different na from just knowing the label. For example, let's talk about pandesal. Oh, fine, alam mo na kung anong pandesal. Pero alam mo ba yung characteristics? For example, it is usually soft. When it is perfect, it is golden brown. You can break it apart and pwede mong lagyan ng iba-ibang palaman. Pwede mo rin itong isawsaw sa kape. So those are some qualities of pandesal. So sa mga bata, titingnan natin kung nakakapansin na sila ng mga ganitong qualities. O next, after you already know qualities, do you already know how to compare or find their similarities and differences? So for example, in this round of pandesal versus skyflakes, so anong similarities nila? They could have similar colors. Sometimes they could be golden brown. Sometimes the pandesal can be lighter, just like skyflakes. So medyo beige, ganyan. They are both carbs. Medyo mahirap i-explain yung carbs sa bata. But just for an example, so to us, they are both carbs. Pareho silang pwedeng lagyan ng palaman, pwede silang lagyan ng spreads. But now, let's talk about some differences. Paano sila nagkakaiba? Yung pandesal, like we said, is softer, but ang skyflakes ay mas crisp. Kapag biniyak mo siya, magka-crack siya, it's brittle. So things like this, yung comparing and contrasting is also part of being able to do categorization. Next, once you know their characteristics, their similarities and differences, but can you remember them? The child needs to be able to remember these and store all this information for later use. And then kapag na-check na natin lahat yon, that's when we can put them into groups and then assign names to them. So it may sound simple to us, but there's actually so much that goes on when we categorize. People with language disorders usually have trouble or difficulty with this skill of organizing their thoughts. And that's why when we practice categorization, this helps target this. Because once we teach them how to organize their thoughts, it'll be easier for them to learn things, understand things, file them in an orderly fashion para mas mabilis nilang makukuha yung information for next time when they need it. And so the part that I know you want to know, kailan natin pwedeng ituro ito sa mga bata? And that's it for today. I hope na marami kayong napulot. Actually, I love categories. This is one of my favorite things to tackle in speech therapy. Kasi ang dami-dami niyong pwedeng gawin. You just really need to use your imagination and really the things that ginagawa niyo araw-araw. Especially, I always remind you to make it meaningful for you guys. If you found that helpful, please show me with a thumbs up and i-share niyo na rin po. And you may leave me comments here or on my Facebook and Instagram at Teacher Kaye Talks. Sabihin nyo na rin sa akin kung meron kayong mga specific topics na gusto nyong marinig or malaman about, and I will try to work on them. If hindi pa po kayo nagsasubscribe, please consider joining our community. We would love to have you here. And hanggang sa muli, happy talking and mabuhay!